Metrics are the fundamental way you can understand the health of your business. Do you have an understanding about where you are on your overall margin on your business? Are you delivering on time to your customers? Are your suppliers delivering on time to you? Reviewing these types of metrics on a daily or weekly basis is super important to understand kind of how you're trending.
Hello and welcome to the Next Level Supply Chain with GS1 US, a podcast in which we explore the mind-bending world of global supply chains, covering topics such as automation, innovation, unique identity, and more. I'm your co-host, Reid.
And I'm Liz.
And welcome to the show. Hello and welcome to today's episode. We're so delighted that you can spend the time with us today. Our guest is Jonathan Biddle. He is the author of Supply Chain for Startups. And yeah, we talk about startups today quite a bit, but I would say that enterprise accounts could still learn a thing or two from today's conversation. We talk about resiliency and what that means, and it might not be just secondary sourcing. It may be a lot of other things. We talk about the importance of relationships and process and system mapping and understanding. There's a wealth of information that Jonathan shares with us today. One thing in particular that kind of caught me a bit off guard was his recommendations for AI. So make sure you stick around to the end to get that, because it's not what you think. And if it is what you think, you're way ahead of all of us. So without any further ado, let's jump right into the conversation. Hey, Jonathan, welcome to the show.
Excited to discuss all things supply chain.
Yeah, we're excited as well. And before we jump into that, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and your background?
Yeah, for sure. My supply chain journey kind of started in grad school, where I got my international MBA in supply chain and data analytics. I really fell in love with just the way that like physical products are made and how you manage that from like an end-to-end flow. So I cut my teeth in supply chain at a company called Prysmian Group, one of the largest cable manufacturers in the world, everything from like building wire to energy cables, and did kind of like plant logistics, plant manufacturing planning. And then I moved to another business unit within that same company that was focused on very niche area within elevator cables. Surprisingly good margins and good business, but that was pretty fun to be in. So did a lot of global supply chain there, managed distribution centers and some manufacturing planning globally. And then right at the beginning of the pandemic, I decided to move to Google, where I've been since then. Did a stint managing a team that focused on server upgrades from the physical side of things. So once a server is deployed into data centers, how do you manage that lifecycle end to end? And then recently moved to lead supply demand planning for the storage products within the data center. So a lot of stuff happening in that space today. So never a dull moment. And throughout all this, I decided to write a book on supply chain. This was kind of one of my pandemic projects. I had started it back in 2016 and never really had the time to actually just dig in and finish it. So while we were all stuck at home, I decided to finish that book and published it in 2021. And really just kind of background for that was I just saw a lot of small businesses and startups really struggling with some of the fundamentals of supply chain. And it was hard to find like good resources that really were down to earth and focused on small businesses. A lot of these like supply chain books that are out there really focus on kind of industrial or, they're like, your solution is a enterprise resource system, planning system. And you're like, okay, that doesn't necessarily work for someone that's just trying to get off the ground. So I wanted to kind of just present the fundamentals and provide an accessible guide to people that are looking to make their business better. Yeah, so I live in Oakland, California today with my wife and my 9-month-old daughter. So also never a dull moment in our household there.
Yeah. A lot of adulting going on, Jonathan, a lot of adulting.
Exactly.
Well, we're excited to talk about this today. And I'm thankful that for folks like you that are focusing on startups, because a lot of companies, and I work with a lot of partners, and they want to focus on the enterprise, right? They want to establish company, and they have different needs and cash flows and all these different types of things. But how do you get to an established company? You have to start, and there are hurdles to get through. So let's dive right into this, okay? When you're kicking things off for a small business, what does resilient supply chain look like? What are the first steps where they have to get to?
Great question. I get this a lot from the startups that I talk to of how do we kind of manage all of the change that happens? And what I usually say to them is Resilience comes down to being able to react to the change that's inevitably going to come to your business without crippling your business. So how do you figure out how to be kind of agile in your response, and how do you build your supply chain in a way that some small changes won't just like fully break your business? Generally speaking, I always start off with kind of mapping your supply chain. It's surprising kind of sometimes how little we actually understand about how the products that kind of are in our everyday life move through the world. So I usually work with them to like start with, okay, what are your areas of responsibility for the product that you're bringing into the market? And how do you map kind of those critical engagement points with your upstream partners and then your downstream customers? So if you are working with a contract manufacturer on certain things, map all that out and don't just stop at that kind of contract manufacturer. Figure out, at least at a high level, kind of who they're speaking with, like what suppliers are they working with, regionality, where are they sourcing from? Because if you're working with a contract manufacturer that's sole sourced in one region of the world, maybe you need to work with them on kind of some business continuity. I think like oftentimes the default to build resilience is what we would call like second sourcing, of making sure that you're not just sole sourced with this individual product. And that could really sound, I think, overwhelming to a small business because there's 1,000 things to do and you're just happy to kind of get off the ground with your single product, right? So I think like it's not necessarily that you need to have second sources for everything that you're selling, but I think like at least understand where your critical nodes are in that flow of your supply chain.
I want to peel back the onion on that a little bit, because what I've heard this year specifically from both large and small brands is that they're realizing the power of relationships and really understanding the business. Having second sources and alternatives to go to for supplies and within your supply chain or needs materials is important, but knowing the fidelity of the business and what constraints they may have and what variables may hit them, tariffs, materials, time of year, shipments, canals, all these different types of things, bridges go down. Like, you need to really fully understand the fidelity. It's not, I get it from company X and it comes in on Mondays and we're good to go. You need to know company X delivers to the port of Baltimore and Baltimore was shut down and they have alternatives, so we're okay, or they don't have alternatives. So is the relationship bit, like, are we having these level of conversations, or should we be having if we're not?
I 100% agree. I think that it's surprising how little sometimes small businesses talk to their suppliers in any kind of like detail. And this is super important. I think like, not only just asking them about kind of what's going well, which is a good thing. Like, how are we, if the metrics look good, but like what is not going well? Because these suppliers often have a lot more experience and they can even suggest things to you as a small business of like, actually, if you tweak this, this would help you kind of broaden your market power or open up other opportunities for your business. And to your like the risk assessment with them too, like most big suppliers and even some of the smaller ones understand some of the risks that they face in their business. So I think like building that relationship gives them the openness to share of like, actually, this is potentially a problem for us. Like, and then you can collaborate on how you solve that together. It's not just kind of a one-way relationship. It's got to be two ways.
Yeah, I'm finding more and more old school relationship building is just as important as full automation and analytics and data-driven decisions. You need them both, but I'm finding a lot of folks are focusing more on the tech and the automation and the data-driven, but you're still going to need that relationship, and you run into problems when the system doesn't work.
This episode is brought to you by Aaron Graphics, who specializes in same-day barcode label printing and resizing of barcode EPS files for retail, and WholeChain, a blockchain-based traceability solution designed to bring trust and transparency to fragmented supply chains. Thank you to our partners for making this episode possible. If you're interested in becoming or working with GS1 US solution provider, please visit the link in the episode description.
I'd like to jump to the next step of this is all overwhelming. There's so much for these startups. What are some strategies or particular habits or things that are under their control that they should be focusing on, whether it be daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, do you have some best steps or practices?
Yes, I think generally I always start off with metrics. I think metrics are the fundamental way you can understand the health of your business. Some obvious ones are, your financial profitability. Like, do you have an understanding about where you are on your overall margin on your business? Like, do you have an understanding of your trajectory on that? Like, I think reviewing these types of metrics on a daily or weekly basis is super important to understand kind of how you're trending. On time delivery. Like, are you delivering on time to your customers? Are your suppliers delivering on time to you? All this is super important to be continually tracking. I think just looking at these things monthly is often not good enough in order to really catch things ahead of time. So, like, cadence in large or small businesses is to just try to like get up in the morning. Maybe you have like a simple dashboard that you've built of like, here are the key metrics, or even just a spreadsheet where you like put them in and you can kind of track trends over time. I think that's one thing, just like being really disciplined on tracking these things that matter for your business too, because there may be customized things that only apply to like what you are trying to drive to in your business. And that's also important to track, not just the big picture kind of like financial sustainability aspects, but like what is driving you to build this business? And is there a way to measure that you're accomplishing kind of your overall goal there? I think another way to like keep this from becoming super overwhelming is to block off time in your calendar every week for big picture thinking. It's really easy to get just dragged down to the details of just surviving, making things work every single day. But if you don't like take a step back frequently and look at the big picture of like, am I achieving what I want to in whole? I think you're going to end up losing your distinctiveness as your business. You're just going to kind of like get into that kind of grind of day to day, solve this problem, solve that problem, solve this problem. And you're not able to like focus on how do we move to that future. I think those are two key ones. And then honestly, back to what you were saying previously, just talk to your suppliers. I think like having that type of a cadence of on a monthly basis, meeting with them. It doesn't have to be like this whole official meeting, just 15, 20 minutes, touch base, ask what's going well, ask what's not going well. As an example, in one of my previous roles, we had a logistics provider that we worked with. And, back to this first point, I reviewed the metrics all the time, looked really good. Things were going well. And so I went to visit them, like, how are things going here? And I discovered that actually they had changed something about our standard operating procedures. So like the good was that this change made them more efficient and we were able to apply this best practice in some of our other locations. The bad was that they didn't tell us, so like this could have been not so great for our business in the long term. So not like digging into like how our supplier was managing the day to day, like it ended up being fine, but it could have ended up worse. So having that touch point, I think is just incredibly important.
Yeah, I mean, the metrics, the finances, the trends, the data piece of it, blocking off the time, I would tell you that it's something that I've been told to do all the time. And you do a little here, a little there. But this is the first time in a really, really long time where I actually block it in my calendar and I protect it in my calendar. And it's typically on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, not a Monday or a Friday, because those are, it's too easy on Friday to be like, oh, I'll do it later. But you really need that time. Otherwise, you'll just get consumed by the machine. You'll get consumed by every meeting, by every detail, by everything you need. You'll be in the minutia, and you need to move yourself from the strategic planning to the daily doing, to the strategic planning to the daily doing. And it's hard as leaders and startup folks to bounce in and out of that. So I'm really glad you brought that up, and the relationships too. My father had a few of his own businesses throughout the years. And I remember a couple of times where he needed a little line of credit from one of his suppliers, and it was the relationship. And they're like, well, we know you're good for it, and we've been doing business for this long. So you can do business with a company for 7, 8, 9 years. But if you don't have the personal relationship, you're just a number. So that's important. I'm glad to hear that. So let's continue down this track a little bit. Things are going well. The company starts to grow. What are the signs that your current supply chain process isn't enough? And are there things that you should be looking for and things that you see all the time with, hey, okay, you're growing and now you're to this step. Now you need multiple distribution centers or 3PLs or, like you just kind of, there's certain things that's like, yeah, once you get to here, you do that,
Great question. I initially always look at kind of the ratio of your manual work to the output that you're getting, especially for the like super small businesses where you're just like one or two people. I think as you start to like have to do a ton of manual work day in, day out, but your output and like the business impact becomes smaller and smaller with this manual work, like that's a huge sign that either you need to bring other people on or you need to bring other partners on to help you manage this business. So I think it's like a critical sign. It is sometimes hard to catch, like back to our point of like big picture thinking of you just kind of get in the daily grind, you're just like doing what you do, you get into the schedule. So I think that big picture thinking kind of will help you understand how is this manual work looking like. I think another thing goes back to like the quality that you start to see too. There are certain types of suppliers and business partners that you'll have at one stage in your company's kind of trajectory. And then there's another kind of level of suppliers that you can often get access to as you get bigger. So I think like as you start to see your needs for like quality and consistency and on-time delivery grow because of the importance of your business, this will show up in some of those metrics that hopefully you've built around your supplier management group. Quality is like hard to track from like the qualitative side, but I think there is definitely a quantitative side if you're dealing with a physical product of, am I getting returns from my customers like at a higher rate? Mm-hmm. That is an immediate sign that like something is wrong with either one of your partners or the way that you built your product. It's just a signal to jump in and start looking at that. Another like quick change potentially that you can make here is checking whether you have a like integrated planning system here. And I'm not talking about system from a software, though software is definitely important. We can talk about that later, but I think it's more of the process. Do you have a way to easily track how much demand is coming through and how much supply is coming through and the balance between that? This is like kind of the fundamentals here that you need to make sure that you have somehow demand, supply, and inventory are all matching in a way that makes sense for your business. And this can just be kind of a simple tracker in a spreadsheet initially. And as you start to grow, this is another like signal that you might need to move into something a little bit bigger, is that it probably will get out of control a little bit with just tracking via a spreadsheet. You need to have some sort of like automated solutions. Even Shopify has some plugins that you can use to track a lot of this stuff automatically.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear you say that. And the emphasis is on systems and process. I was having some conversations this month about them, and everyone's like, well, we need to upgrade CRM and we need to do this, and we need to do that. And I'm like, I was around before CRM, right? We still did the same work, right? Silk Road has been doing trade for a long, long time, right? Thousands of years. So I like that you're starting off with, you can start off with paper and pencil, then move to a spreadsheet. But to your point, we've all been there. The spreadsheet gets out of control. And then, we had a manual error. Somebody forgot to update this, or they put an extra zero in. And then you move to barcoding and you're doing other aspects. And then you're always trying to find, but as they say, you can't eat the elephant in one bite. It's one bite at a time, and you're kind of moving along. So I can't emphasize enough with you that systems is the success to scaling. Systems and planning and building off of it.
I totally agree. And I feel like it's a tricky time to know when to invest in a system like this as a small business. But I would, you don't want to do it too early because you can get distracted by tweaking your software and not actually focus on the business. But you also don't want to do it too late either, because you're not going to have any more time than you have today, honestly, as you're growing. So the earlier you can kind of understand when to invest in some of these critical like things that will actually move the needle on your productivity is going to be a super impactful decision for your business.
Yeah. Where we are today with technology, and you can lease and rent and buy by the hour type of thing. And you mentioned Shopify. I mean, jeepers, 1998, 2000, when I was in IT, building data centers and such, you would need $500,000, at least $250,000 just to get off the ground. And then you'd have to put the servers in and build everything. And now you can leverage these partners that are out there and these platforms and systems and dabble a little, right? Like, hey, let's try this for 2 months and, spend a couple $1,000 versus a couple $100,000 and have to build it up and maintain it. So there's a lot of great opportunity out there. Are there any specific tools or approaches that we should be paying attention to right now?
I do think, in fact, the Shopify example I brought up is, that is a huge needle, and there are other similar tools that are out there for small businesses. But within that tool, there's a growing ecosystem of these kind of plugins that you can just add on.
Last I looked, I think there were over 10,000 apps you could leverage within Shopify. That's wild to me.
It is, yeah. And to your earlier point, when you're talking about ERP systems, like, it used to be where you'd have to go to this company and they'd like, here's the 15 modules that we offer, and you would select, and it's this whole implementation process. But now you can just kind of like click a button and you can try having some extra visibility to your business. And then you can uncheck that button and you don't have to pay for it if it doesn't work for you. So I think that is really just a huge benefit for small businesses today, is that like you don't have to spend a ton of money on implementation. You can kind of trial things out to see if maybe a bigger solution would actually work for you. So I think like you can get this type of ERP level results with these small business tools today. I think like one example that is probably becoming even more important with the focus on AI these days is kind of predictive stock analysis. That's always a huge problem within business. Is how much inventory do you hold, especially in today with supply chain volatility all over the world. Is there just a simple tool that you can add in that says, here, based off of your current business, like here's what we recommend you kind of tweak on your inventory scenario. I think there's also other growing tools there on kind of scenario planning and simulation analysis. The technical term in the industry is a digital twin, but really this is just kind of like looking at what are various scenarios that if I did this, what would be the result? And being able to leverage kind of a plugin to do that, again, is huge. Like even just a few years ago, this required a huge team of consultants to come in and like, map out your supply chain and then like map out kind of what the future was, and a whole data team. I did this about 10 years ago and it was a whole thing. Now you can kind of just like click a button and, enter some criteria and have it kind of assess if you made a change to your business, like, is it going to have the results that you think it would?
Right. I mean, I remember 10 years ago, data scientists, big demand, machine learning was, the thing. And then it was unsupervised machine learning. And now we're into, generative AI and so on. The world's going to keep spinning. It's not going to stop. Innovation is paramount, and it's happening out there. I remember when you would invest into these enterprise ERP systems and it would be a 3 to 5 year rollout. You purchase it, you'd spend a year and a half implementing it, you'd spend half a year, 9 months testing it, and then you start rolling it out, and then you start getting ROI in 3 to 5 years. Whereas what you shared with Shopify, you go on, Shopify helps you set up a store, they do your point of sale, they can help you with some advertising, and now you can have the luxury of, hey, I want to go global. And they have applications that help you with the shipping, the tariffs, the VAT tax, and all these things. It's wild to me. Like before, you needed teams and teams and teams. So that's really exciting. But I'm sure you could attest to this. At the end of the day, you still need to do the work. Like it doesn't change. The work still has to get done.
Yeah, I think that's a huge important point to make, is that you still have to like have some knowledge too. So I think like with all these tools comes a lot of power, but also like there still is this, make sure you understand what you're doing when you're making some of these decisions too, because they can have big business impacts. And oftentimes like some of these plugins even are pushing kind of a view of the world, a view of supply chain that may not be best for your type of business. And you want to make sure that you kind of take a step back, think about what the impacts would be, do some of the scenario planning to make sure that you're making the right decisions.
Yeah, I often talk with folks and they're like, yeah, I'm thinking of a side hustle. And I'm like, just remember, a side hustle is either a hobby or it's another job. And if you're serious about it, I mean, I'm not saying you shouldn't do it. I'm all for it. but you have to go in with eyes wide open. It's not, I'm just going to do this and I'm going to make a couple $100,000 extra a year by only working 2 hours a week. Yeah, that's after you've put in 80-hour weeks and built, to your earlier point, systems that work and have metrics. Like, there's a lot of upfront work to do. If it was easy, we'd all be doing it, type of thing. So a couple more questions here, and we're kind of butting up on time, but I wanted to get to a couple others. Let's just talk about AI a little bit, right? It's the new shiny penny out there. It's constantly changing. I'm floored by it. I see a little bit of a hype cycle kind of trench that's coming here a bit, but the adoption and the normalization of it is probably the shortest amount of tech adoption I've ever seen in my life. You know, being involved with the internet from 1994 to now and seeing it develop when it was wide area networks and local area networks. And now it's, you know, it's just the internet. Now it's just AI and all these types of things. I'm blown away by the adoption speed. Where do you see AI helping supply chains and in particular, our startup companies, our small companies?
There definitely is a lot of hype around it. So I think, all of the cautions around that, AI still has reliability and accuracy issues. But I do think it, to your point, like over the last 2 years, even the level of accuracy and confidence in the information that's providing is just wild. It's just dramatically improved. And so I think like because of these tools exist, like if you don't at least explore adopting some of them, you're probably going to fall behind because this type of speed that AI is enabling on being able to make decisions and having access to more information and like consolidating all the information into something that's actionable is a new normal. And, figure out how to adopt that in your business. I think there's probably like 2 or 3 big areas that I would look at for a small business. One is contract review. I think like oftentimes these huge long documents, you just like even a professional can miss stuff and get lost, right? Like there's these nuances that maybe you don't think about, like, oh, well, they make this statement, but what if my business were to change? Like, does this actually hurt my ability to make as much money as I want to in the future or have the type of business that I want to? So being able to just like throw a contract into Gemini or ChatGPT and have it kind of comment on, here are some things that you can look at, hugely powerful. And there are going to be specialized startups out there that do contract review, like for an extra fee, something that you can look at if that's like a huge part of your business. But I think like just using the stuff that's available to you for lower cost can really highlight some opportunities as you work with your suppliers.
The contract review, I was not anticipating you going there. And as soon as you said it, I'm like, brilliant. Because that's not, you don't think of supply chain like, oh, I got to focus on this. But this is a huge part of it. And to your point, there are massive documents leveraging AI to review it. What should I be concerned of? What's a risk and liability? And coaching the AI into what your business is. I absolutely love that. That was a golden nugget.
This has been exciting. Like I've thrown a few in myself and been really just like floored by some of the things that it popped out. I was like, wow, okay, that's something maybe I would have gotten there after like 3 hours of like reading through this long document, but here it is immediately available. I think that's another like leads into the second one of like natural language queries of these types of documents that you start to accumulate as your business grows, but combining that with some of the data that comes in through your business on demand and supply, being able to just like ask a question in natural language of like, what is going to happen? Like, what is your prediction on my inventory in 6 months? Like in the past, that was something you had to like post it into a spreadsheet and make some calculations, make sure you made the right calculations, and you would eventually get to a number. But here you can kind of get a result fairly immediately, and it's super helpful for actionability in a startup or small business that you just have so many things going on.
Yeah, I love that one as well. Last year, I inherited a team and I asked for the last 3 years of performance data. And they're like, yeah, no problem. We have it. Boom. They gave it to me in a second. I'm looking at this multi-1,000 row spreadsheet and I leveraged AI. And within 10 minutes, I was like, I came back to them with, hey, wow. And they were like, how did you do that so fast? And I was floored. But it gave me contextual understanding of a massive amount of data in 5 to 10 minutes. And some perspectives I wasn't even thinking of. There were certain things I'm like, I want to know about this, and it just kind of gave it to me right away. So I love both of those. I think that they're truly golden, nuggets. And it goes back, put these into your systems, right? Your process systems. Jonathan, this has been amazing. And I'm sure we could go on and on and on. And I would encourage people, I haven't yet, but I will read your book. But I encourage folks to check it out. But before we part here, and Liz wasn't able to be with us today. She was taking some personal time off, much needed for all of us. And we typically jump into 2 questions we ask all of our guests. So I'm going to handle both today. The first one is, what is your favorite technology that you're currently using? Could be personal or professional.
Probably 2 come to the top of my mind for technology. One is more personal, just based off of the stage of life I'm in with a 9-month-old daughter. We have this Nanit camera that is
just
it was
going there.
Amazing.
I didn't want to. Yeah, I didn't want to lead the witness, but I knew it was going there.
It's it's not something that probably would have bought myself, but it was gifted to us, and just the ability to track her sleep on a daily basis, and work with my mother-in-law who's taking care of her during the day. Of here's how much she ate, and all of those things. It's just super cool. Look at this app, be like, oh, she slept this amount last night, and coughed this many times, and you're like, okay, this is kind of wild. So
yeah,
pretty cool. Then I think another tool, maybe on the the professional side, also in personal, it's just Notebook LM, another AI tool where you can just dump a bunch of documents into this tool and kind of just chat with the AI about it. Use this on kind of making some healthcare decisions on which plan to use. I just dumped a bunch of the tools in here, or a bunch of the documents and policy documents, and was based off of my stage in life, what do you recommend? And it gave me a whole chart of here are the pros and cons. And that was just super, super powerful. Helped make decisions a lot faster.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you for sharing both of those. So our last question for today is, what is something new that you want to learn in the near future?
I would have to say surfing.
Surfing?
Maybe it's just the true California spirit out here, but it just feels like something where I would love just to be able to get outside and leave everything behind, and it's just kind of you in the water there. I tried one time, it didn't go super well, so maybe I'll have more success in the future, but just sounds super relaxing.
Awesome. Well, listen, Jonathan, thank you so much. Really enjoyed this conversation and appreciate the work that you're doing and the insights you've provided, and thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me, Reid.
Thank you for joining the Next Level Supply Chain with GS1 US. If you enjoyed today's show, you can subscribe to our feed or explore more great episodes wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget to share and follow us on social media. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.